Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining. My name is Jeff Soretto. I am a CDW badged product manager covering Microsoft Modern Work, or simply known as Microsoft 365. Today, we will be talking through Copilot for Microsoft 365. We'll also be talking through the CDW Cloud Solutions Provider program a little bit as well. With that, let me go ahead and advance the slide a bit. So our agenda. We're going to go through a few points. First, we're going to have a brief introduction. We're going to talk through CDW and our Cloud Solutions Provider program for anyone that may be coming from, maybe if you're not buying it through CDW or might be coming from another licensing vehicle such as an enterprise agreement. We're going to talk about some benefits of the CSP program. Then we'll talk through Coplatform 365, the main event. We'll also be comparing it with some other similarly named products. We'll be talking through CDW's professional services to help you make the most out of your investment. And then we'll be talking through some closing remarks, including a survey and raffle. I will say now, for the purposes of the raffle, if you attend the entire presentation and you fill out a raffle that will be sent after this presentation is wrapped, you'll get an email. Fill out the survey. You will be entered into a raffle for a Surface Go laptop. Specs-wise, it's 12 inches big. It's 256 gigs of SSD, 8 gigs of RAM, and an i5 processor. So pretty cool, handy device to take with you wherever you go. No pun intended. All right, so with that, let's talk through a little bit about CDW and our Microsoft solution. So if you're new to CDW, welcome. If you're a returning customer, welcome back as well. But I think this slide is certainly worthwhile to show everyone because it's a nice pane of glass of all the different areas that CDW works within Microsoft. More often than not, in my 10 or I guess 11 years now at CDW, I found a lot of customers are engaging with us in only certain areas and may just not know that we actually play in all of the areas of Microsoft, and of course, all of our other different partners that we work with. But keeping things to Microsoft, I like to make sure our customers know that, we do real well with Microsoft services engagements. In 2022, 2023 slide will come soon, we did over 4,000 engagements. We have over 600 CDW badged Microsoft-focused technical specialists and project managers. We have over 25 years of helping our customers with Microsoft solutions. And when we talk about licensing, which is perhaps one of the more confusing topics of Microsoft, we have over 140 people that are dedicated to helping you understand, okay, what do I need to purchase to get the most out of this product? Because more often than not, it's just not going to be an endpoint product. It's going to be potentially part of a suite. And also make sure that you're in compliance when you purchase that product. And when we talk through the different areas that we help with, so I'm not going to read through all of these. I like to throw this up as kind of something people can snapshot and take with them, maybe print and put on a wall if that's your thing. But we do work with, again, every area from building transformative applications, helping with productivity and collaboration, which is going to be actually a big topic of today, protecting users' data and the devices, of course, and managing and supporting your ongoing business operations. CDW historically, we're really great at shipping product. We talked about the Surface Go. We've got lots of them in stock. We can help you with those. But we are working to transform perhaps the older opinion that we are just really good at shipping boxes to, hey, we're actually also a services provider, and we can help you with all of these different areas and then some. So without staying on a slide for too long, I wanted to talk through the Cloud Solutions Provider program. So if you're unfamiliar with CSP, CSP is a licensing vehicle that allows you to purchase your cloud Microsoft 365, Office 365 products on perhaps a billing option that up until about 6, 7, 8 years ago was completely foreign to us, i.e. a subscription. So hopefully this isn't news to anybody that is coming on his and already is using Microsoft 365 because you're already using a subscription, but you might not be using it in the way that may benefit you the most. I mentioned the enterprise agreement. There's other licensing programs out there. I won't inundate everybody with all the 50 of them, not 50, like 10. But the CSP program has a lot of benefits. I just want to make sure I throw on the screen so everybody can see. I'll walk through a few really quick. Flexible billing options. You can pay monthly. You can pay annually. Talking about an enterprise agreement, that's something that you're committing to for 3 years. Very different process. You also, with the CSP program, will get 24/7 by 365 support from CDW. It's a single point of contact support. So all you have to do is call us, email us, and we will directly help you with your incidents. We do, of course, have access to Microsoft's support. So if something truly is, if you were working on Friday, you might be aware, not to throw anybody into the bus, but sometimes outages happen. We do have access to Microsoft engineers. So if we need elevated, escalated support with Microsoft, we have those keys to that castle, and we can continue to be that single point of contact for you and not punt you to the 800 number at Microsoft. We will make a ticket on your behalf, and we will CC you on those communications with Microsoft. Walking through the list a little bit more, self-service via cdw.com. So if you want to track what you've purchased, you want to pull invoices, heck, maybe these aren't things that you want to do, but maybe it's somebody that supports the IT organization, maybe somebody in procurement. That's an excellent place to send your workers to, so that way they can get the information that they need without having to go maybe to you if you're directly in IT. One tool that is exceptionally useful that I'm proud to share about is called Inscape. Inscape is a tool that gives you a single pane of glass, potentially overused reference, but a single pane of glass that you can manage not only your M365 usage, but also Azure, and there's some other bits in there. So if perhaps you use maybe a hybrid cloud, so maybe you're using AWS or another cloud, there's the opportunity for you to be able to manage what is my usage. You can set up policies. So if maybe there's anomalous behavior going on, perhaps within Azure, where maybe you left a SQL VM running too long and you didn't mean to do that, Inscape will give you that alert. So there's a lot of really robust tools built into it. Another tool I'll throw in there is called Team Captain that will help you see, okay, who's actually utilizing the most out of Teams, who's not. So hopefully nobody's still using Skype nowadays, but we definitely can see, okay, these folks are just using Outlook. They're not using Teams for anything more than I am. And we've given them Teams meetings. We've given them a bridge that they can make conference calls with, but they're not utilizing it. Why not? That may open the door to potentially a shadow IT instance where maybe they're using a GoToMeeting or WebEx or something else. Another tool within Inscape that's coming soon is called Clip Training. And I'm going to touch on Clip Training at the next slide, but to give you a really quick high level, it's empowering your workers to take trainings as they need. So this could be, this could go within the Office suite. So maybe you've got a few interns that just came out of college and they've never seen the Office suite before. They don't know best practices to work within Outlook. Clip Training can serve as that ramp up, if you will, to help them get onboarded and get started faster. But Clip Training will also soon have a module in it about Copilot for M365. So stay tuned on that. I'm going to have a slide with some screenshots coming up in a minute about it. And then available as an add-on. So professional services, I have a few slides that talks through that, but professional services, the slide that you just saw before with all our different expertise, the question that you all might be asking yourselves is, okay, so CDW does a lot around, let's pick one out of a bag, endpoint security, maybe helping me around deploying or utilizing Defender for Endpoint in the best case, maybe looking at managed services to manage alerts and consolidate them into one place, into an incident, and help me maybe make my SOC a little bit better. Maybe there's another SOC that CDW can provide to help perhaps maybe offload that. So that started with the question, how do I actually go with that? That's where CDW's professional services can help you. We have a robust, at least 60, 70% of the 400 or 500 people that you saw on the screen before are dedicated to helping customers with those professional services. I'll talk through that a little bit more without trying to get the cat out of the bag for Copilot. Whew. All right, so another add-on that's available that actually we've been having available since 2016, so there's a good chance you've heard of it, but we have unlimited cloud backup from Skykick. For those of you, if you didn't know, backing up your M365 is very important. Putting all of your eggs, if you will, into just one basket, the M365 basket that is, may not be the best for you. More often than not, we've heard a lot of customers say, I would like to have my backup in case something happens on the Microsoft side someplace else. And that's where Skykick come in. It's a separate instance from your M365. It's all automated. It's cloud-based. It's actually based in Azure, so it's very protected. It's very automatic, so you actually don't have to do anything. And it's snapshot-driven. It takes 6 snapshots a day of all of your data, whether that's in Outlook, Talking Exchange Online, whether that's SharePoint Online, and of course, if you didn't know, that also includes Teams data, and of course, OneDrive. Nobody wants to get that ticket from somebody that says, hey, there's an email that I had, I can't find it. I think I deleted it and it's past 30 days, so it's gone. Is there any way for me to recover this? Or God forbid somebody deletes an entire SharePoint site. Not a good time, although there are a lot of native tools within Microsoft to help restore those things. It's more often than not, though, good practice to have it someplace else. And the last thing is CDW technology support. So I mentioned the 24/7 by 365 US-based support. That, by the way, is admin level. The CTS or CDW technology support, it expands on the 24/7 that's above, and it also includes your on-premises, potentially Azure workloads. So if you have, let's say, a robust SQL Server system on premises and you're looking for some kind of a retainer-based support system, so if you need support and you need it bad, whether it's 24/7 or maybe a lower cycle, CDW has support options for you and can help you troubleshoot those things. So anything that's mission critical, again, anything that's on-prem. I mentioned SQL, that's a very common use case. Of course, Windows Server, Dynamics, SharePoint on-prem. No judgments here if you're not using SharePoint Online 100%, or even in Azure. So that's CTS. Pricing, of course, varies depending on what you're looking to cover and how many hours of that retainer you'd like for us to help you a year. But that is something that we're starting to see a lot of customers who have just mission critical workloads and is looking for that support to come from CDW potentially. Okay, take a sip of my water here. Okay, so talking through clip training. So this is coming to the Inkscape tool in March of 2024. If Inkscape is a completely brand new tool to you, you've never heard it before, that's okay. You're in a safe space. Inkscape comes with subscription when you're buying it through CDW. You cannot purchase this through any other place. This is CDW proprietary technology. So it's definitely a big value add, if you will, if you're buying through CDW and you're buying CSP. It is not available if you're buying it through another licensing program, so like Enterprise Agreement, which I mentioned earlier. So a few quick snapshots because I do believe seeing is believing. And on the left there, you're going to see what the admin dashboard looks like. You've got a variety of different tools. I already mentioned the cloud management piece where you can manage all of your usage in one pane of glass. I also mentioned Anomaly. I also mentioned the Teams management system a little bit to see who's using Teams, who's not. Then we go through the Microsoft 365 training, clip training. So this is what it looks like from an admin POV. You're able to monitor from a high level. And of course, you can give this access to perhaps maybe managers that may just need access to this dashboard and not the others within Inkscape. That's totally okay. Because at the end of the day, you might not need to manage every single training of every single worker. However, and we're going to touch on this, that might be a good use case for IT to step in around Copilot. We'll talk more about that in a bit. But this is the admin's POV. And then from a worker POV, this is what it looks like to them. Granted, this is a snapshot, so we're going to soon see the Copilot one be on here and you'll have access to Inkscape. But this is what it looks like to them. It is a web portal, if you will, self-paced learning, curated trainings around specific products to help workers, use the products in potentially a better way than maybe they had been before, so that way they can be more successful and use the tools that we're giving them, right? So again, this tool is coming in March 2024. Now, for the main show, Microsoft Copilot. So if you haven't heard, Copilot is sort of a brand name at this point. There's a lot of different products that have the word Copilot in it, and honestly, it gets a little bit confusing. I'm here to hopefully separate a little bit of the confusion for you all. But I like to show this slide so it kind of gives everybody an idea of where is Copilot. Well, frankly, it's everywhere. It's in the entire Microsoft suite, from the browser and search side of things within Bing to operating systems like Windows 11 and soon to be Windows 10. On the developer side within GitHub, business applications, we're talking Dynamics or even LinkedIn. Data and AI on the left, we're talking the Power Platform. And then in modern work, we're going to be spending the bulk of our time today. So I said that I was going to clear out a little bit of hopefully the mud for you all and separate, okay, which Copilot is what, so you know what you're looking for and what this presentation is also about, quite frankly. So for every role or every Microsoft Cloud experience, there's essentially a Copilot. Now, they may not all be available. In the next slide, I'll talk a little bit through which is available, which is not. But today, we're going to talk through specifically about Copilot for M365. And this is a good use case. So we're starting on the left with every employee. This is a good use case for virtually every worker potentially at your organization. I'm not saying every worker needs it, but it's certainly a good use case for whether it's an entire sales team, the HR department, maybe a back-end team that maybe isn't customer-facing. There's a lot of use cases. But at the end of the day, Copilot from 365 works within the productivity apps within the Microsoft Office 365 suite. So we're talking Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams, and then going down on the second left now, we have Copilot. So Again, with a little bit of the confusing conventions. I know, I'm with you, I'm there. Let's make it easy. Copilot is an AI-powered chat search tool that also has commercial data protection. So Copilot, available today, by the way, so is Copilot from 365, but Copilot is built within Bing. So you'll be able to, if you have any M365 suite, we're talking M365 Business Standard, Business Premium, O365, et cetera, you have Copilot built in. Granted, some of the standalone SKUs like Exchange Online, maybe not, but any of the suites, yes. And essentially, I mentioned that commercial data protection because the first thing that any IT worker is wondering is, well, if Bing is helping my workers search the internet and PS, search within your own SharePoint Online for answers, how safe is that? Is our data potentially being used to train Microsoft's AI, or is that data being used elsewhere? The answer is no, not within Copilot. So I want to make sure I echo that, and I'm sure there will be a lot more questions, and that's okay. So throwing that out there, AI-powered chat search with commercial data protection. It's built into Bing. Of course, you can use it in another browser of your choice, as long as you're logged in with your work credentials, and it'll show on the top your data is secured as a little top piece. All right, going down the list a little bit more, Copilot for Windows. So that's platform-based centralized AI assistance built into the OS. So maybe a poor taste joke, but I like to call this the Cortana 2.0. That's coming from a CDW person, so take that for what that is. But it is a lot smarter than Cortana ever could have been. And honestly, I've been using it within my experience to do things that I would have normally searched the internet to figure out how to do. I.e., I mean, a really basic example is turning dark mode on for all of Windows. That's something that I would have had to Bing search or Google search if that's your thing. And I would have eventually found probably a Microsoft support ticket where somebody asked that, and there was a step-by-step guide of, here, this is how you do it. You go to control panel, you click this, you click this, you click this, and you click that. Copilot for Windows can take my prompt, my request, and do that automatically. So it's simplifying the experience for your workers. And that's available today in Windows 11. It's coming for Windows 10. Functional business roles, I won't spend too much time on this, but this generally is the area where we think of Dynamics, we start thinking of Salesforce, we think of how to empower your workers within sales to be able to reach out, work with their customers in a way that will simplify things. A lot of the products within this space are not yet available and or are just in preview to a very specific audience. So we don't have a lot of, I guess, detail on this, except from what Microsoft has shared, saying, hey, there's going to be a Copilot for Sales, Copilot for Dynamics 365, Copilot for Service. We're all very anxiously awaiting more details, but I'll stop there. That's not yet available for the majority. Security and IT professionals, so third from the right, we've got Copilot for Security and Copilot for Azure. So I'll touch on the Copilot for Azure first. That's your AI companion to help you design, operate, optimize, and troubleshoot apps within your Azure infrastructure. So I think this is particularly interesting for any of us that are working within Azure and could use an extra hand. This is not to be confused with GitHub Copilot on the right, which we'll talk through in a sec. Now, Copilot for Security, this one, so my background, without oversharing too much, if you haven't looked at my LinkedIn already, it's the first thing I do when I go on these webinars. But my background is around security with Microsoft. Copilot for Security is extremely interesting. It's not yet available, but this is, from what we've seen through Microsoft's had a variety of different webinars on these so far, but it's using AI to prepare, investigate, and respond to threats. So this is really cool where, say, for example, you see an incident, but you're not quite sure how to respond and how to remediate it. Maybe you are from maybe doing a Google search or maybe just from experience, but if you're a brand new IT worker or this is an incident that you've never seen before, Copilot for Security can make your response time so much shorter by giving you actual advice of here's all the steps that you need to do. Here's the different sources within the Microsoft 365 tenant that this threat has shown itself. And it just makes it a much simplified way for you to be able to respond to that. And on top of that, Copilot for Security will even give you, if you request it, a report at the end of that incident once you've remediated it. So if you, for example, need to send this report upstairs and say, hey, here's what we encountered, here's the steps in which we remediated, Copilot for Security can do all of that. So I'm extremely interested for Copilot for Security. Hopefully that wets the whistle for you all as well. Now looking on the right, GitHub Copilot, that's actually been out since 2019, if I'm not mistaken, 2020, 2019, around there. But that is a tool that can help developers essentially create what they need to create on the scripting side. Gives them recommendations, what they should be. It could create an entire script for them based on a single prompt of, hey, I'd like for this file to tell me hello world. Although, granted, I think developers are a little bit past needing something to do that. Moving down the list a little bit more, Copilot for Power Platform. So we're talking within Power Platform, helping look at trends, helping workers be able to find data and show it in a potentially better way that they may have not known about. And then talking about Copilot for M365 or Copilot for Microsoft Fabric, infusing the power of large, very large language models into Power BI. So that also, I guess those two bottom ones, Copilot for Power Platform and Fabric. Again, we're in the zone of waiting for more information on that. So if you work within the Power Platform or within Fabric, hopefully these things are interesting to you, and stay tuned. There's a lot of really great information out there from Microsoft. Okay, give me one sec. Actually, yeah. Okay, so Copilot's use cases. So I'm going to go through a few use cases to help hopefully land or resonate the different Microsoft Copilots with you. So first, you might have a worker on the top left that says, hey, we would like to explore using AI within Word, Excel, PowerPoint, the Office Suite, Teams, to help us potentially do our jobs in a way that is easier, faster. Great. That's going to be Copilot for M365. And coincidentally, that's also going to be a use case within Teams. So one of the big use cases within Teams, and I'll talk about that right now. I've been using Copilot for 2 months now from M365. It has helped me in areas such as Outlook, summarizing an entire thread. So when I was on vacation and I returned and I got back to a thread of 40 replies, that was a little extreme. But Copilot from M365 was able to analyze that thread and specifically tell me all the specific bits that I need to pay attention to, including the next steps or the action items or the things that they were saying Jeff can do this when he gets back, which of course were conveniently buried somewhere within that thread. Another example of Copilot for M365 within the M365 apps is Teams. I use Teams extensively with Copilot M365. So quick, very real life example. I'm on meetings throughout the day. Sure, no doubt most of you are as well for most of your days. And one of the hardest part in those meetings is taking notes, legible notes, but also taking notes that are actionable, that have next steps. And I've struggled for most of my career providing those kinds of action items and next steps and an email back to everybody after those meetings. So everybody can kind of see in a single pane of glass, here's all the things that we need to worry about. Copilot for M365 can do that, complete with Jeff agreed, and he thinks that we should do this and that. Lindsay says this is also a good idea. Next steps, Jeff is going to follow up with Lindsay to talk about the deployment for SharePoint Online, whatever the thing is. That's extremely impactful. So that's Copilot for M365. Another use case, we want to enable users to leverage generative AI when searching the internet so that way they can get better answers. And we want our chat information to stay private. That's Copilot. So again, that's also available today. If you use the Bing browser and you're logged in with your at-work credentials, it's very easy. But of course, you can use another browser and log in with your at-work credentials and go to bing.com and go through that. But that's a definite use case for Copilot. Again, it will search the interwebs and it will search your own SharePoint Online, the files that they have access to. It's extremely smart. And of course, you can have a conversation with it in natural language. So very, very useful. The hard part for workers is knowing how to prompt, and the same goes for M365 Copilot, but it's how to prompt to get the most out of it. And that's where we talk through some of our services where we're able to help enable your workers to create good prompts so that way they can get what they need much faster and increase that adoption and make the most out of your investment. Another one on the bottom left, we want an enhanced user experience with generative AI user features built into Windows Desktop. I talked about dark mode. That's Copilot for Windows. That's already been released. It's available in Windows 11, soon to be in Windows 10. On the top right, we need to improve the ability of our security team to identify, investigate, and respond to threats using AI technology, which connects PS into Microsoft Defender, the entire Defender suite. So we're talking about Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Identity, et cetera, as well as Sentinel. So very powerful tool. It's very smart and can connect into the rest of your Microsoft suite, including the security tools that you're using to make your life so much easier. Next one, we want to build an AI integrated, or we want to build AI integrated applications and our own copilots within the Microsoft Power Platform and Teams. Great, that's Copilot for Power Platform. Definitely a lot of features in there for the Power Platform within Teams. So if you're looking to make your own Copilot based on, let's say, Power Platform or within Teams or what have you, that could be through Copilot Studio, which I haven't mentioned too much in depth. That might be a really good topic for another webinar. But if you want to customize Copilot and work within these different parts of the suite, that's Copilot Studio. Next one, we want to improve the productivity of our developers by writing better code and doing it faster. That's GitHub Copilot. Again, that was released actually, and I have in my notes here, 2021. So for those of you that said it's not 2019, it's the COVID effect. Everything that happened in the time period. Yeah, so 2021. And then if we want to build custom AI integrated application to solve a specific problem for our organization on the bottom right, that may be something within Copilot Studio, but more likely it's going to be something that's really custom within Azure OpenAI. So if you have a use case, perhaps creating maybe a bot of some sort to work within your organization or even with your customers, maybe save them some time and get quick answers quickly, that could be something within Azure OpenAI. It's kind of an open sandbox. Copilot's really designed for the individual workers, whereas Azure could be one to many, and again, it could be for those external customers as well. Okay, so I mentioned a little bit about Copilot, and I might have overshared a little bit of frustration with the naming convention. Let me clear up a little bit more mud here because I got a lot of questions ahead of this webinar that I just wanted to make sure I address here that talked about, hey, how does this compare versus ChatGPT versus the free Bing Chat that's available for virtually anybody with a personal subscription? You can buy it. I believe it's $20 for a personal subscription of Bing Chat. And then how does that stack with Copilot, the work experience that's available if you're buying M365, let's say Business Premium or M365 E3 or E5 or et cetera? And how, of course, does that compare with the Copilot for M365? So the first two, ChatGPT and Bing Chat, those are for personal use. Yes, has generative AI. Yes, you can search the entire internet for things within it, but will it give you information that is secure? So if you want to search the internet, for example, say one of your workers wants to search the internet to see if a competitor is creating a product that your R&D teams are developing, I would not recommend that they put that within a personal M365 account or when they're not logged in with their work account within Copilot into the regular Bing Chat. What Copilot can provide is that commercial data protection where AI is not being trained based on the prompts or the answers or anything, and all of that data is being retained within your tenant. It is not being sent to Microsoft. It's not being given to, God forbid, like other workers out that are in other organizations. It's completely secure. And how does this compare with Copilot for M365? So simply put, Copilot for M365, while yes, you can use it, you know, if you're using the browser versions of the apps, it'll work there too. But essentially it is for the Office suite, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. I'll talk through some of the requirements in a minute. Teams, that's essentially within the Office suite. So again, Copilot, yes, it's for work, but that's for search. Copilot from 365, we're talking from 365, the apps. And this is a great one pager. And if anybody's in the back taking pictures, this is probably a good picture to take. This just simply says how Copilot in each of these different apps can help. I made the example before about Teams. I made an example before about Outlook, summarizing threads. I'll give two more really quick examples on the top here, Copilot in Word and Copilot in PowerPoint. I think it could simply said if you are somebody or if your workers are tasked with, hey, I need you to create a brief, or I need for you to create a presentation for our customers about this new product. So we're talking people in marketing, we're talking people in sales, we're talking people in HR. Really, this is open to almost anybody within the organization. But if I could say at least the challenge for me, and I think the challenge is not universal, but it's pretty up there, is getting started is one of the hardest things. What Copilot and Word and PowerPoint can do is take a simple natural language prompt, such as, hey, Copilot, how are you doing today? You don't have to say that part, but hey, Copilot, please create for me a brief about our new product, XYZ, why it's important to our customers, and what they should do if they have questions as like a next steps, if you will. Copilot will take that prompt. It can refer to a specific document that you referenced in that request, or it can search your SharePoint online, all the files that you have access to. It can also search online too, in case everything's out there as well. And it can create that 1 to 2 page. Here we go. Here's your 80% of the way briefing of this new product. And of course, it's 80% of the way. You're going to want to take the next 20% and tweak it, maybe fix a few things, maybe reword it a little bit. And you can prompt it further from there. You can even say, Copilot, thank you. This is 2 pages of awesomeness. Can you consolidate it to 1 page? Or can you add in information about X, Y, and Z? Copilot can work with you on that file until you get to a point where you say, I've got it from here. So there's a real opportunity here for your workers to save a lot of time. And talking about time, so here's what Microsoft tells us that the workers within the early access program was for the month before this released. We're talking before November 1st when this released in the enterprise agreement space. This just released in the CSP space very recently. But this is coming from customers in that early access program sharing back the gains that workers reported from using Copilot. So hopefully as you all start to think of how can this help me, how can this help my workers, well, what's the actual ROI? And the ROI really varies organization to organization. We have services to help you demonstrate that in a meaningful way. But hopefully this kind of helps get the car started a little bit. And no pun with the car as the first part of the bullets here. So when we start talking about Copilot for M365, when we talk about within the actual, like let's say Word or Excel or PowerPoint, over 70% of Copilot users were saying that they were more productive, that they could complete tasks faster. So hopefully my anecdotal example resonated. But if you're a numbers person, people are clamoring saying, I don't want you to ever take this away from me. This is something that will save me so much time. Again, with having Copilot within Outlook, it's over 60% of workers using Copilots, and they're spending less time processing email. So I use the example of how it can summarize threads. Another quick example, you can have Copilot write that email for you, or it can look at an email that you've already written and actually give you a kind of like advice based on the tone, which honestly, it's very eye-opening for somebody like me. Apparently, I'm a very direct person on the email, and Copilot has kind of helped me nudge that down a couple of notches. So using Copilot in the email makes it so much easier for me personally, oversharing maybe a little bit, to be less self-conscious about my emails, but also more seriously summarizing threads or writing an email that I need to write with. But again, the hardest part is starting. That helps me a ton. Now, when we talk about making a first draft, over 80% of Copilot users say that, hey, that's helping me get a first draft much faster. And when we go down a little bit, Copilot helps users catch up on what they missed. So it's a pretty small percentage. I'm going to glance over that, but all for transparency, this is what people said. But over 80% of people are saying it's making it much easier for me to track what are the next steps. So in that 6%, there's a function within Copilot for M365 for Teams. Say, for example, you join a meeting late and everybody's already had a great conversation for the last 10 minutes. You didn't get to hear any of it. Well, before Copilot for M365, you would potentially have to raise your hand and say, hey guys, and I'm sorry to bring us all back, but I missed the first 10 minutes. Can you all just quickly refresh me? You may not have that opportunity. Or you may listen to the recording at 2 o'clock in the morning, like some of us, guilty, and try and figure out and put the pieces together. Okay, what happened in that meeting in the first 10 minutes? Because apparently it was a lot. So that's the feature within Copilot that allows you to catch up, if you will. But when we talk about action item and next steps, again, if somebody that has perhaps the messiest handwriting on the planet, and talking and writing notes is not my forte, and I don't think it is for many of us. Having it work within your meeting and actually take next steps and action items is a huge burden that is lifted and helps keep your workers actionable and constantly moving and not having meetings just to have meetings, which honestly is a pretty big complaint in the workers world if you haven't heard it. So Teams or Copilot for M365 within Teams can really help your workers on that. So the early access program for our customers, they reportedly said that they save between 8 to 10 hours per person per month. So that's an ROI of maybe approximately about 720% of an increase. Holy cannoli, that's pretty big. But depending on your use case, depending on how big your organization is, depending on where your workers may look for assistance and maybe bettering their productivity, bettering their 8 hours that they spend at work, helping them maybe log off at 5 o'clock like maybe they should be, Copilot for M365 can help them in so many ways. It can reduce worker burnout. It can save people time. But again, just capturing that ROI requires a little bit of effort. And we do have services to help you. So that way, if you are looking at, well, this all sounds great, but I'm not sure how to make the case for that to upper management, we can help you there. So before I get into the services, I just want to talk through the requirements and the licensing. So technical requirements. Now this is fundamental. This is basic, but I feel compelled to mention it because it is on the requirement sheet on what do they call it now? Not Docs, but Learn. These requirements are on there. So users must have an Entra ID account. If you're not familiar with Entra ID and you're like, what in the heck is that? Is that new in Passport? That's new naming for Azure Active Directory. I know. It's called Entra ID now. Next up, users need to have OneDrive enabled, just like when we had workers move from Skype to Teams and we all kind of clamored and said, well, if they have the rest of the Office suite, if they have OneDrive, if you're using SharePoint Online, they're going to get the most out of Teams. The same to be said here. Users need to have OneDrive enabled for Copilot from 365. Next, we need to make sure that you're on the current channel or the monthly channel of releases, so that way your Office apps are being updated in a way where Copilot will populate on them. And then also on that note, when we're talking applications, there is a new version of Outlook. When you're in these channels, you'll see it. There's a slider bar on the top that will say new Outlook or old Outlook. Now, if you're an early adopter like some of us, you've already switched over that new, and that's a new GUI, isn't it? Yes. So in order to use Copilot from 365 within Outlook, you need to be on the new one. Support will be coming in 2024 for the classic one. No judgments here which way you have it, but if you're using the new, you will be able to use this today. Copilot for Windows also requires, I feel compelled to mention this, even though this is more about M365, but Copilot for Windows requires Windows 11. Windows 10 is coming soon. I mentioned that a few times. We don't have an exact date, but they said early 2024. Licensing requirements, favorite topic. Again, we've got over 100 people, very smart people that are dedicated to licensing and to help you make sure that you're purchasing the right license, the right suite, make sure you're making the most out of your investment. And with all the complexity within licensing, some of these, I'm very thankful that we have these folks. So when we talk about licensing requirements, this is a new change. No minimum quantity requirement. Now, if you've been staying up to date with the news within Copilot for M365 and you heard something about the number 300 being the minimum, that was a minimum starting when this released in November 1st in enterprise agreements and has since been lifted. Enterprise agreements require 500 user minimum just to start the agreement. So if you're on the smaller side, or even if you're a 2,000 person shop, an enterprise agreement may not make sense for you overall. The folks I mentioned in licensing can help you discern what is right for you. But there is no minimum for Copilot for M365 specifically, by as little as one. And quite frankly, because, and I'll jump down a little bit, there are no trials available. We're seeing a lot of customers, a lot of your peers out there across the country are saying, yeah, I'm going to kick the tires a little bit before I jump in. Just give me 5 licenses. I'll give them to some power users. We'll give them to IT. We'll see if it's pretty cool, if it's not. That's totally okay. Now, going back to the second one on the top, on the right. M365 Copilot is an add-on license. So it's an add-on. It builds on top of the pre-existing standalone suite. And what are those suites, you may ask? So O365 E3, O365 E5, as well as the M365 E3, E5, and the M365 Business Standard and Business Premium suites. So it is not available if you're translating this and saying, well, I have a bunch of business basics. No go. You want to bump that up to Business Standard. Or if you have a bunch of, let's say, Exchange Online users that are just using email, maybe they just need the 50 gig mailbox, but you want to give them Copilots, that way they can work within Outlook. You need to bump them up. Cheapest plan for that will be Business Standard. Now, when we talk about cheap and price, so Copilot for M365 itself sells for $360 per user per year. Now, you may be used to the idea of, well, how much is it monthly? You know, you talked about monthly options before about CSP. Why aren't you showing that here? So Microsoft has made it so there's not only an annual commitment, meaning you're saying I'm going to buy this license for 1 year, but there's also an annual payment required. Translation, monthly options is not available. And again, that's not a CDW thing. That is a Microsoft thing. I already talked through the new trials available, and I want to make sure I address these last two because I got a lot of questions ahead of the webinar. I'm glad that you all did because I wasn't going to touch too far into this. But so if you're on the government side, say, for example, using GCC or GCC High, the Copilot for M365 is coming in the summer. So stay tuned on that. We're all very anxiously looking for it on the government side as well. I'm sure those of you that are in those kinds of tenants are as well. So hang tight. And then for an education POV, so it is only currently available in the Enrollment for Education Solutions program, abbreviated as EES. Not yet available in CSP. So if you have an EES agreement, good, you're golden, get started. But if you're not in that program, maybe you're on the smaller side, or maybe you really enjoyed those benefits within CSP program that I mentioned before with support and monthly options, what have you. It's not available just yet. Hang tight. I think that's going to be coming out before it comes out for government. So fingers crossed. Okay, so quick success plan of Copilot for M365. So I've divided this into 2 areas, if you will. On the top, we talk about what to do, why do it, and the services that CDW can provide. And I've divided our services into 3 different sections. So we've got the pre-Copilot work, meaning this is the kind of stuff that you want to think about. If you're an IT decision maker, if you're an IT manager, if you're a sysadmin, if you're network, what have you, these are the kinds of things that you should think about before the actual deployment. And then on the second row, if you will, deployment and adoption. We're going to talk through the different things you should be thinking about, why you should be doing it, the services we can help out around deployment and adoption. And then last but not least, where to go from there. Once you've deployed and adopted it, where do you go? Where do you go at all? So pre-Copilot work. So I mentioned this a little bit before, but you want to drive usage of the core workloads within M365. I talked about OneDrive. That is a key part that will make Copilot for M365 work. But of course, so is the rest of the M365 suite. Now, you also want to make sure that the files, the data, because I mentioned before, Copilot from 365 is going to use your own internal SharePoint Online data, as well as, of course, the interwebs. But if you wanted to use the best information that a worker should have access to, you want to check on your file, what access your workers have access to for files. So you want to look through file modernization. You want to look through making sure that perhaps maybe you still have SharePoint Online on-prem. Again, no judgments here. Or maybe you have some file servers on-prem that could benefit from being attached into Copilot from 365. This is an opportunity for you to bring those files and bring them into SharePoint Online. So we've got a lot of services in that area around file modernization, file governance, helping you set up SharePoint Online migrations. The list goes on. That has been something that even before Copilot from 365 that we at CDW, we're seeing a lot of our customers look at, whether it's because of a tenant-to-tenant migration, maybe through a merger and acquisition, what have you. I mentioned a little bit about data, talking through it a little bit more. You want to make sure that you have a robust data and governance and security policy. You want to make sure that you can control what data Copilot and workers can actually access, and also just make it easier for Copilot to provide quality results to those workers. You don't want to give them access to things that they shouldn't have access to, and you don't want them to have access to too much stuff that potentially could water down the answers that they're seeking. And of course, CDW has lots of services in this area as well. These are not new by any means. Purview, data loss prevention, we're talking through data lifecycle management, access reviews, you name it. Those are areas that you really should be thinking about. And again, CDW has services to help you get there. Now, talking through adoption planning. So deployment adoption. You might notice that I skipped right to adoption planning. The reason being is deployment is scarily simple. It's as easy as turning on a virtual light switch, if you will. Once you've turned it on, the question is, are people going to use it in the way that is best served for their role, best served for what they want to get out of it? Because the last thing that you want to do is turn this on, tell people, hey, you've got access to Copilot from 365 and walk away. Because I almost guarantee you, some workers will maybe, oh, wow, this is great. Like, look at all these things. I figured out how to prompt it the right way. It's my new best friend. Or more than likely, if they have one experience, just one, where it doesn't give them the results that they wanted, they're going to think, oh, the AI, it's not up to snuff. It's not that good. So we want to make sure that we plan our adoption. We want to make sure we arm your workers with perhaps best case prompting guides. We want to make sure that we help train them on how to use it. But we got to first think, okay, planning wise, before we even get into that, we want to plan on what does success look like, what use cases, what different parts of the organization could use this, and then plan that training, plan that ongoing, what's next steps. And CDW has services, and we're going to talk through each of these adoption services actually on the next slide, because this is very specific to Copilot. But we have a lot of services specific around, okay, let's make sure that we align things to the right departments. Let's create personas. Let's create use cases, communication planning, something that's more than just an email of saying, hey, everybody, you can now have access to Copilot from 365. No. We want a robust email that's maybe specific to the different people or teams, organizations, maybe business units within your organization, to make sure that they can feel like, wow, this is something I'm going to use and it's going to save me so much time and help me do my job in a way that's going to be awesome. License assignment. So this might be a bit basic, but when you buy the license, you need to assign it to users. Might be a little bit obvious, but CDW, of course, can help you with that license procurement. We sell Copilot from 365. And if maybe you're new to the admin center and you're unfamiliar with going into the admin center and how to assign licenses or unassign, if you're unfamiliar with the assign part, please ask us how to unassign, because that may come up at some point. We're happy to help you with that. Right? Adopt orchestration. So you want to, from there, once you have your planning and you've assigned the licenses to workers, they're going to start seeing, oh, wow, this Copilot thing is showing up on Outlook, or this Copilot thing is showing up on Teams or Word or what have you. What is this? What do I do? We want to make sure that we execute on that communication, that adoption plan. And very importantly, we want to measure success. CDW can help you with surveys. We can help you with analyzing. There's a lot of really robust data within the admin center that can help you look at usage analytics of who's using Copilot, what programs are they using, what apps are they using it with, how much time are they using with it. And of course, I talked about surveys. We can actually ask the workers, hey, you've had Copilot for X number of days, weeks, months. What are your initial thoughts? And what questions do you have for us that maybe we can help you use it maybe better? So we've got a lot of services around there for training, communications, creating a center of excellence, helping workers with guides for prompt best practices, and of course, measuring success. Now, you might think that's all done. And quite frankly, that could just be it for your Copilot deployment, your adoption, the pre-work. But there may be opportunities from there where you can look at using Copilot, but not just within your tenant, but maybe using it within other applications. I mentioned Salesforce a little bit ago. You might not be using Dynamics, you might be using Salesforce, or you might be using another CRM. So I'll pick on using sales as an example. You may have an opportunity to extend Copilot from 365. It's connected into Outlook, it's connected into Teams, and connect that into Salesforce to help bridge that gap, if you will, and essentially make your workers' lives a little bit easier. So there are connectors out there. There's being connectors that are being developed. You might have a very specific use case. Maybe it's not Salesforce. Maybe it's another CRM. Maybe it's a CRM that maybe not that many people use, but your workers really like. We have a lot of services at CDW to help you create those connectors, those plugins. There are hundreds now, but there is that ability to create your own. So let us know if there's an opportunity or a use case specific to your organization where we can really potentially make things even easier and better for your workers. We're happy to help. Okay, second to the last slide. So for those of you that stuck with me for this long, thank you. So talking through 3 specific services, or potentially just 2 specific services that are specific to Copilot. And then the last one, we'll talk about kind of like the art of the possible, what's next. And I talked a little bit on this with the previous slide. So on the left, you'll see we've got Copilot for M365 Workshop. Then we've got Copilot for M365 Readiness Assistance. And then we've got Agile Development and Microsoft Solutions. Excuse me one second. Let me take a sip. Water, it's good. All right, so situation. So say, for example, you're in the spot where licenses have not been yet purchased, but there's interest growing, whether it's within IT or throughout the organization, where, hey, we want to use AI. What's the art of the possible there? And IT naturally, I might be talking to most of you on this call saying, okay, well, that's nice. You know, certain business units want to use Copilot from 365. But if we're going to purchase this, we need to make sure we can measure its impact. And very importantly, we need to make sure we know how to roll it out. And I mentioned a lot of those use cases and a lot of ways that we can help. This Copilot for M365 workshop, it's a 2 to 3 day engagement where we will give you an overview, a readiness assessment, and an understanding from a high level of what is needed to be successful. This is I want to say it's on the cheaper side of services because it's very structured to just these things, and it's just very high level, but it's a really great spot to start, especially if you're not 100% committed yet into Copilot from 365 and you're just trying to explore what is the art of the possible. Here's my organization. You'll have that opportunity to kind of introduce, here's the use cases I think it could help me with. Can you confirm or deny or help recommend other use cases? We can help you get started. Now, second, or right in the middle, say, for example, you're ready. Maybe this webinar gave you everything that you needed, and you said, yes, M365 Copilot or Copilot from 365, sorry, they changed the names on us, but you're ready to move ahead, but you need help creating a specific plan for readiness, for adoption. This is very similar to how we moved over from Skype to Teams, but different in so many ways, because Skype at the end of the day, that went away. Copilot for M365, that's going to be sticking around, and what you're going to need to be mindful of is that adoption piece. If people aren't using this, it's going to be very tough to demonstrate the ROI and continue to keep and use this. So that's where this readiness assistance comes into play. So to compare and contrast, duration, the workshop before was 2 to 3 days. This is 3 to 10 weeks. So there are technical and business level assessments that lead to a specific to you detailed plan that will help you prepare the tenant. So we're talking about data governance. I mentioned a little bit about that before. We're talking about Purview. We're talking about access policies to entire SharePoint sites or specific files within them, and protecting that data within Microsoft Purview. So if you're already really bought into M365 or Copilot for M365 and this sounds great, but you just want to get started, sure, you can DIY and you can figure it out on your own. But CDW has a lot of experience in this world where we can help you get started and move in the direction that is tracked towards success. And then last on the right, so say, for example, you're looking to extend a Copilot with custom chat box or connectors into those external data sources. So I mentioned Salesforce at length. I apologize if anybody's really anti-Salesforce, but there are other CRMs out there. Maybe I should be picking on Dynamics more. But if you want to extend Copilot into other applications, we can help you with this agile development for Microsoft Solution Service. We can help you create a custom chatbot. We can help you create a connector to extend Copilot on the front end or even on the back end. So there's a lot of opportunities there because we found more often than not with organizations, not everybody's using 100% Copilot, or excuse me, not everybody's using 100% Microsoft apps. No doubt there's a third-party app in there. No doubt there's another SaaS application that isn't Microsoft branded, but it would really be awesome if we could connect into that. The answer is yes, that's out there. There's a lot of connectors already created, but if it's not created, we can help you create that. Okay. So for those of you that have made it with me, we're about 4 minutes from the top of the hour. I want to say thank you. Thank you for being here with us and hopefully learning a little bit about Copilot for M365 and, of course, the other Copilots that are out there. So as a quick reminder, each of you will be receiving an email with the survey. Please fill it out and you'll be entered into that raffle to win the Microsoft Surface Go. If you have questions about Copilot from 365, that's great. That meant that I did my job of giving you just enough information, or maybe you have no questions, but hopefully this stimulates the thought process, if you will, of how can I make this work for my organization? If you have questions on it, please reach out with your CDW account manager, and they will be able to get your questions answered by our experts I mentioned earlier. We've got hundreds of them. They're ready to help you. Chances are, if you've talked with them about licensing or about those services I mentioned before, they're ready and able to help you. And if you're interested in a technical deep dive, because I understand completely that this was not a technical deep dive into CoPlatform 365, the nuts and the bolts that are out there. I realize that. There are some really great webinars actually happening out there from Microsoft. And if you're interested in them, check me out on LinkedIn. I'm sharing them all the time. Microsoft's having deep dives with the people that created Copilot, that have been adding stuff into it. So, and this is ongoing. Stuff's being created every day. You know, this is like the .com era, if you will. Everything is brand new and shiny, and feels like we're going down a slide at light speed. So with that said, I hope this was a valuable use of your time, and I guess we'll close it up there. Thank you very much, everyone. Check out that survey. It's going to come shortly after this webinar. Please fill it out, and good luck on the raffle. Thanks again. Take care.